for he sent me to bring glad tidings to the poor. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus departed from that place and came to his native place, accompanied by his disciples. When the Sabbath came, he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were astonished. They said, "Where did this man get all this? What kind of wisdom has been given him? What mighty deeds are wrought by his hands? Is not the carpenter the son of Mary, the brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon? Are not his sisters here with us?" And they took offense at him. Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor except in his native place and among his own kin and in his own house." So he was not able to perform any mighty deed there, apart from curing a few sick people by laying hands on them. He was amazed at their lack of faith. The Gospel of the Lord. Every year, the 4th of July, for the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a big gathering for the 4th of family and friends and neighbors at a friend of mine's house. And the story that was going around at this event this year was the story of a little story about Ricky and Dave. They're friends. They've grown up together. They're actually been pretty much spent every day together since they were babies, and they're now about 5.5 years old. So recently, after school, they were playing baseball. Actually, one of the grandmas was tossing the ball to them, and Ricky is the more athletic one of the two, and even at 5 years old, he's got a great swing, nice and even. He hits the ball. In fact, he really crushes it. Great contact, smashing the ball, having a great time. Then it's Dave's turn. Dave gets up, the ball comes towards him, and he puts everything into that swing and completely misses the ball. Does one of those Charlie Brown complete twists around with the bat. Total miss. And he is furious. He throws the bat down and starts stomping around. And the grandma says, "Wait a minute. Get over here. First of all, you never throw a bat. You will never throw a bat. And secondly, just sit down here and cool off." But he continues. He can't be consoled. "No one cares about me. No one's on my side. I'm alone." At which Ricky walks over, puts his hand on Dave's shoulder and says, "Dave, you're never alone. God is always with you." A charming story, and one which in itself, because it got told over and over again at this party, got the message out. God is always with you. But what was interesting was the different reactions to that story of everyone that heard it. For me, it was, my gosh, we have a preschool evangelist right in our midst. His mom said her reaction was, I guess sending this kid to Catholic school is paying off. They're doing their job. Now, earlier I had heard from his father that, just to get the right picture of Ricky, he's kind of the rough and tumble guy, that he had been disciplined earlier, this is a 5-year-old, for using adult language. So let's not make Ricky into a saint quite yet. His grandmother, the pitcher in the ball game, said, you know, as I watched this unfold, I never saw somebody more close to getting a punch in the nose for his response to Dave. As I said, this story was retold a number of times at this party. And it was usually began with this, the way they introduced it was, have you heard about Father Ricky? And him telling Dave that you are never alone, that God is with you. Someone asked Ricky's dad at the end of the party, so is Ricky going to become a priest? And his father's answer, I think appropriate, was, well, he's 5, but maybe. Why not? Jesus is in his hometown, among his relatives and friends. And he does not get the same reaction to his presence as Ricky. His close friends and relatives and neighbors are all there, but they're astounded and offended. Who does this guy think he is? We watched him grow up. We know his family. He's a traveling builder. Now he thinks he's a traveling rabbi. Jesus, as we hear in other accounts of this story, is also close to getting a punch in the nose, or even worse. In the Gospel of John, the reaction to Jesus is, can anything good come from Nazareth? So apparently, Nazareth is a place of low esteem with people of low self-esteem. They have low expectations of themselves and low expectations, therefore, of Jesus. And even as they gather in the synagogue for the Sabbath, they're asking, can God possibly be at work here? Can anything good happen amongst us, in this place, in one of us? Their answer seems to be, nah, probably not. As we gather this evening, the end of a wonderful holiday weekend in this beautiful church, as we gather here in this wonderful parish that so much life and growth, I think maybe we ask the same questions. What is our expectation of God? What is our expectation of ourselves and of each other? And what is our expectation of the celebration of this Eucharist? What do we have faith in God that God can do amongst us? I mean, it is good we're here. We showed up. What more do we want? Can God inspire 5-year-old evangelists or 25-year-old disciples or 55-year-old missionary disciples in our midst? Do we see God acting in our world? Sometimes it's hard. Is there a modicum enough of faith? Is there enough faith that healing can happen for each of us right now and this evening? Can we hear Jesus calling us to a wildly open mindset that focuses more on possibility than mistakes? A Jesus that says that our swings and misses, our embarrassments, frustrations, rage, are opportunities for grace. That our loneliness can be a reminder that we are never alone. That perhaps we have a thorn in our side, as we heard in that second reading, Paul famously talks about. Perhaps it's a persistent challenge in our lives, an unshakable malady or weakness. That actually that place of vulnerability, that's the place where God can be at work in us and through us. And if one of us were to get up and give that witness of God's presence in our lives, how would we hear it? One of the things that struck me about the reactions to the Richie and Dave story was that usually when it was retold in the party, they would say, "Have you heard about Father Richie?" And don't get me wrong, it would be great if Richie someday became a priest. That would be great. But what struck me was that the expectation of where God works, the expectation of who gives witness to that seeing and hearing and speaking about God, is assumed the power and grace and reassuring presence of God. It seemed that that's reserved for or expected of the professionals, priests and church people, or maybe we expect it from that annoying, overly religious neighbor or relative. You know, the people you'd like to punch in the nose. But we're here tonight. We've showed up. And I invite us to allow, in fact, even to expect and to be reminded and go from this place knowing that the presence of God is alive and active in us. That Jesus accompanies us, never leaves us alone, is with me and with you. And that the power of the Holy Spirit can be what we heard in that first reading. The Spirit comes upon the prophet and raises him up, gives him life. That's the promise for us. That's what we should expect from God to do for us. And that we too are commissioned to be people who share that good news. It's not reserved to others. But our story about God's hand on our shoulder and on the shoulder of his others is ours to share also. Can we do that? Do we feel called to that? Are we empowered to do that? In the words of Ricky's dad, why not?